Hi everyone, for tonight's Nightcap and review, I'm having water, and tonight I'll be discussing my nonfiction audiobook that I got through the Libby app, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and this book was very eye-opening. I enjoyed it, but it was eye-opening. I gave it 5 stars, so what's it about? Now, to make sure I don't misrepresent or misspeak about what the book's about, I'm going to read the synopsis straight from the Zon. Jarvis Cotton's great-great-grandfather could not vote as a slave. His great-grandfather was beaten to death by the Triple K for attempting to vote. His grandfather was prevented from voting by Klan intimidation. His father was barred by poll taxes and literacy tests. Today, Cotton cannot vote because he, like many black men in the United States, has been labeled a felon and is currently on parole. As the United States celebrates the nation's triumph over race with the election of Barack Obama, the majority of young black men in major American cities are locked behind bars or have been labeled felons for life. Although Jim Crow laws have been wiped off the books, an astonishing percentage of the African American community remains trapped in a subordinate status, much like their grandparents before them. In this inquisitive critique, former litigator turned legal scholar Michelle Alexander provocatively argues that we have not ended racial caste in America. We have simply redesigned it. Alexander shows that by targeting black men and decimating communities of color, the U.S. criminal justice system functions as a contemporary system of racial control, even as it formally adheres to the principle of colorblindness. The New Jim Crow challenges the civil rights community and all of us to place mass incarceration at the forefront of the new movement for racial justice in America. So, what are my thoughts? Again, I'm giving this 5 stars, and this book was really eye opening. I will admit, it's one thing to acknowledge that the police are militarized and that there are policies in place or policies that are being twisted to target black and brown communities over white communities, as well as there are whole local economies, usually in rural America, that are structured around these for profit prison centers that just want to put as many bodies in their beds as possible to, well, make a profit. But to actually listen and hear each policy put in place or how it's being used or misused to target these communities, as well as the legal ways they are targeting and chipping away at the protections that were put in place to protect these communities, as well as the incentives offered to these police forces to do what they're doing, was just eye-opening. I wish I had a better way to describe how I felt. There was a whole range of emotions, but it just really connected the dots and just made me feel a lot of things. That's really the best way I can describe it. Now, I will admit, I was one of those people, like this book points out, that saw President Obama as a changing point in this country. That, yes, America was, and let's be honest, is a racist country, but this would be the time now that we could really move this country forward, especially at a policy level, and change things for the betterment of everyone. And I was probably naive in thinking that, because as this book points out, it can't just be all about policy, because people are the ones who enforce and put in those policies. So we also have to work to change people, and that is best done at a grassroots level with community outreach and education and bringing awareness to people and what's truly going on in the communities. And yes, civil rights organizations are a great part of this as well, but they are only one part. And as this book points out, and this is not to discredit anyone, it's that these organizations are run by lawyers, and lawyers tend to look for the perfect case and the perfect client. But when you have these policies and systems in place that are to target these communities from a young age to basically discredit them so that they are never the perfect case and never the perfect client, it makes it hard for lawyers to move forward, especially because that motivation is really to make people like myself, white people, comfortable with what the civil rights organizations are doing, because then when we're comfortable, we'll back you. And it really shouldn't be about that. It should be rights for all, and it's just really that simple. It was just, overall, it was a really eye-opening book, and it really made me stop and think, and I will be getting a copy for my shelves because it's definitely something I want to keep referencing and referring back to and just to sit with as I go forward. 5 stars, currently available, and I strongly recommend everyone give this book a read.